Hello and welcome to Chapter 6 from Hawks. This lecture will cover section 6.1 through 6.4. All four of those discuss the normal distribution. Because we spent some time building up things with the uniform distribution and the exponential distribution, we'll be able to cover the normal distribution in one rather lengthy lecture, but still just one lecture. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to discuss the differences between the uniform, exponential, and normal distributions, know the expected value and the mean of a normally distributed random variable. It's kind of tricky because remember, the mean and the expected value are the same thing. Sketch the graph of a normal distribution. Realize that capital N normal and lowercase n normal mean different things. The capital N normal refers to the distribution, and lowercase n normal just means typical or not surprising. Be able to calculate probabilities of normal random variables and quantiles of normal random variables. So here's the arc that we've been working on. Chapter 5, we looked at discrete distributions, which included probability mass functions, PMF, calculated means, variances, sample spaces for those discrete distributions. The discrete distributions we looked at were the Bernoulli, the binomial, the Poisson, and the hypergeometric. We also looked at generic discrete distributions in the first section of Chapter 5. Chapter 6 looks at continuous distributions. I introduced the uniform distribution so you get an idea that probabilities for continuous distributions were actually areas under the PDF curve, which meant the PDF curve was not probabilities, they were probability densities or likelihoods. We used the uniform to illustrate how to calculate the CDF, the cumulative distribution function, using simple high school geometry. And then we moved on to look at how to calculate the mean, the variance, the sample space, the median, other quantiles on the uniform. So that section on the uniform just laid the foundation for all the other important features of continuous distributions. The second section was the exponential, where we did the same thing, but then we realized creating that CDF function, that cumulative distribution function, was not easy. And in that case, we had to use calculus to get it. Or it was given to us fully formed out of the seafoam. Your choice. So we went from the uniform, where we created it ourselves and got a good feel for how it was created, to the exponential, where we had to use calculus if we wanted to see how it was created. To this lecture, it's normal, and there is no CDF function, which means that in the uniform, we really didn't have to pay attention to the CDF. We could calculate those probabilities in our head. Exponential, we needed to use the CDF, but it was a nice simple form that we could use. For the normal, we got to go to a table or to a computer. And for much of the second half of the 19th century, a lot of effort was spent trying to create those tables. It was pretty easy in the early 19th century to create a CDF function for values of, we're going to see, z between -1 and +1. That was pretty easy to do. Once you got outside that -1 to +1 realm, it got harder and harder and harder to get good estimates of those probabilities. With the advent of computers, it's much easier. I mean, we could even do it. Today we're going to look at the normal, the probability density function for it, the CDF function for it, the mean variance sample space, median, quantiles, aka percentiles, same stuff. We're going to see the function, the PDF function. We're going to realize, okay, we don't need to memorize that. We're going to see that we can't write out the CDF function in any meaningful way, but we'll find out ways of calculating. The Gaussian distribution apparently was named, or no, apparently about it. It was named after Carl Friedrich Gauss, who advocated for its use, aka created it, or at least we think he created it. Those who stem from the German school of thought think he created it. His first paper, though, was 1809. It was Laplace who published a paper earlier than that using this distribution. That's why the French descendants call this the Gauss-Laplace or just the Laplace distribution. But we're going to call it the normal distribution. Gauss said, hey, wait a minute, Laplace, I was working on this way back in 1794. No evidence of it except Gauss's word. Normal distribution arises from modeling observed randomness in astronomical and geodetic data. It arises in variables that have a specific expected value but demonstrate some minor random variation above and below. So for instance, this pop that I'm drinking now says that it contains 100 milligrams of caffeine. So I would not be surprised if the distribution of caffeine in these bottles followed a normal curve. That is, the mean would be 100 and there'd be some variation above and below because you can't get exactly 100 milligrams of caffeine every time. There are two parameters to the Gaussian distribution, or to the normal distribution: the mean and the standard deviation, mu and sigma. The most important distribution in statistics because of the central limit theorem, which we'll see in chapter 7. So for the record, if x, a random variable, follows or is distributed according to a normal distribution with mean mu and standard deviation sigma, then the PDF is lowercase f of x is this thing. Notice that the PDF depends on mu and sigma. Depends on sigma in a couple places. However, recall to chapter 3 when we looked at the standardized score, we can subtract off mu divided by sigma and we actually come up with another normal distribution. It's a normal distribution that does not depend upon mu and sigma. It's a standard normal distribution with mean 0, standard deviation of 1. So the normal distribution has two parameters, mu and sigma. The standard normal distribution has no parameters. And it's a standard normal that is tabulated in books. Here's a graph of the standard normal PDF. Notice that it goes off on both sides forever. This should raise some memories of the empirical rule. You will see sometimes that the PDF is symbolized with a lowercase phi, Greek letter phi, lowercase phi, lowercase f, because it's a PDF, and the CDF will be an uppercase phi. I don't think I have an uppercase phi on here. Here's the mean. Notice it's also the median. Normal distribution is symmetric, so mean and median will be the same. Notice also it's the most likely value because the the likelihood function, the PDF, is highest there. So this is the highest likely, or the most likely, value from this distribution. So the normal distribution, the mean, median, and mode are the same value. Here are the standard deviations. At this point, you should be able to say, hey, I know what percent of the data, or of this distribution, is between -1 and +1. And what percent is that? No, nope, nope, nope. Oh, I'm sorry, I misheard you. Yeah, 68%. And what percent is between -2 and +2? Yep, about 95%. And between -3 and +3 is 99.7%-ish. Call the normal distribution is continuous, but it's not rectangular, and it can be proven that the CDF cannot be written out. Hence, late 19th century, early 20th century as well, working on estimating those probabilities. So you have to use a table or a computer. Table 1 tabulates this CDF. Computer calculations are easier to perform, however. They're more accurate and they are more precise. The stem is norm. You have to specify the mean, M, and the standard deviation, S. P for the cumulative probability, Q for the quantile, R for generating random values. The PQR is the same as it has been with all the other probability distributions. Stem is norm, and you have to specify M and S. So some examples. Intelligence quotient. By design, the IQ measures in the United States follow a normal distribution with mu equal to 100 and sigma equal to 15. This is by design. This is how they create this test. What proportion of the U.S. population has an IQ less than 90? In other words, what random variable do I use? In other words, if this is the distribution of IQs in the United States, I want to find the area under the curve less than 90. The purple area. I want to calculate the probability that x is less than or equal to 90. Given that x follows a normal distribution with mean, expected value of 100, and standard deviation of 15. Here it is in R. P for cumulative probability, norm is the stem for the normal, 90 is the value. We're specifying M is equal to 100 and S is equal to 15. This comes out to be about a quarter of the population. Wait a minute, I can hear you saying. I thought this P only worked when it was less than or equal to. What is going on here? Are you trying to pull something over on us? The answer is no. Remember that x follows a continuous distribution. In this case, it's a normal distribution. That means that the probability of x equaling 90 exactly is 0. Think back to the uniform distribution. It's an area, so it's the base times the height. If the base consists of a single point, then the width is 0. And a width of 0 times whatever height is going to give you a probability of 0. So for continuous distributions, less than or equal to are going to be exactly the same. What IQ value separates the lower 30 from the upper 70%? So we're looking for an IQ value. That tells me I'm going to be using a quantile. I'm looking for the 30th quantile, or the 30th percentile. So I'm looking for this value here, such that 30% is in purple. Q for quantile, we're looking at the 30th percentile, so it's 0.3 here. Then we specify the mean and standard deviation. 92.13399. So approximately 30% of Americans have an IQ score less than 92.13399, and approximately 70% of Americans, that's everyone else, have an IQ of more than 92.13399. 30%. It's pretty frequent still. So in other words, IQ of 90 and no big deal. By design, IQs, etc., what's the proportion of Americans that with an IQ score between, we haven't dealt with any between calculations yet, between 87 and 122. So we want this purple area, between 87 and 122. For calculating cumulative probabilities, it's got to be in the form of less than or equal to's. So I can do less than or equal to 122, but that covers everything here, not just what we want. But notice that this region is less than 122 minus less than 87. Looking for this. This is just the cumulative probability at the upper minus the cumulative probability at the lower. So approximately 75% of Americans have an IQ between 87 and 122. That's a lot. And now we'll go for above. We did a less than, a between, now we'll do an above. It's probability proportion of Americans have an IQ above 90. So this purple area. Complements rule, this purple area is just 1 minus the white area. 1 minus the white area. So again, about 3/4 of Americans have an IQ above 90. So let's do a learning check. I'm going to ask some questions. I'll pause. You answer them on your own out loud because dog's watching you and you really do want to talk to it. What type of random variable will have a normal distribution? A random variable with a definite target and some random variation added to it will tend to have a normal distribution. What's the difference between capital N normal and lower N normal? Capital N normal refers to the distribution itself. Lower N normal refers to the fact that something is not unexpected. What is the sample space of a normal random variable? All real values. There is neither a lower bound nor an upper bound. What is the expected value of a normal random variable? Very good. That's mu. It's one of the parameters. What is the variance of a normal random variable? Yes, sigma squared. It's the square of one of the other parameters. Remember, there are two parameters, mu and sigma. The variance is just the square of sigma. What R function is used to calculate cumulative probability for normal? Yep, cumulative probability, so it starts with a P. For normal random variables, so it's P norm. And what R function is used to calculate the quantiles? Q norm. Q for quantiles, norm for normal random variable. In the future, we're going to keep working with the normal distribution simply because of the central limit theorem. And we're going to use this normal distribution to estimate population parameters. But this last one will be the second half of the course. Here are the R functions, none too surprising. The stem is norm, then we got the D, P, R, and Q. Notice when we were dealing with the discretes, we used the D a lot. Now that we've moved on continuous, we really don't use the D. I use the D norm to create those graphs, but really you don't use the D norm function at all. You focus on the P norm and the Q norm and the R norm. Here are some readings for you. R for starters, Appendix B3, C1 and C2. And Hawk, section 6.1 to 6.4. Normal distribution in Wikipedia is a good one. I haven't done the intra-lecture quiz or questions. Here we go. Question 1, give an example of a random variable that follows a normal distribution. Question 2, what are the two parameters of a normal distribution? And question 3, what are the mean and standard deviation of a normal distribution? 3 again will be really easy. 2 will be pretty easy. 1, that'll take some thought, but it'll be easy. Oops, went too far. So I guess I'm done.